Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of SJU, where today we'll be talking about the one thing on everybody's mind. What does Chris Nolan have to say about the box office performance of Tenet? That will be our...
It's on my mind.
It was wall-to-wall coverage on every news channel last night.
I know you all probably stayed up really late wondering what he would have to say, but we finally got our answer.
I wore a full suit to watch television just for this occasion.
As he would have demanded. I watched the news in 70 millimeter as intended.
Adjusting my...
I'm here with Lon and Eric, if you haven't figured that out by now. And after we talk Nolan and all things BO, it's just going to be a live chat. So we're going to answer all your questions, AMA us up, write whatever you would like us to discuss in the sidebar. And Ryan will do some light screening, but then filter along the ones he wants us to talk about to us. You're back from vacation, right, Ryan? You're here?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
All right, great.
Emphasis on light screening, very light. Spell check it.
I mean, look it over. Give it a good eyeball. Yeah,
I'll keep an eye on them.
Yeah. Okay.
Look, we might not all be at 100% today. We might not have got a full night's sleep.
So, Chris Nolan, he sleeps well. He sleeps like a baby because he looks on the bright side of our world and COVID-related box office impact. He spoke with the LA Times and had this to say, kind of some backhanded criticism of the studios. He said, quote, "Rather than looking at where the film Tenet has worked well and how it can provide them, the movie theaters, with much needed revenue, they're looking at it where it hasn't lived up to pre-COVID expectations and will start using that as an excuse to make exhibition take all the losses from the pandemic instead of getting in the game and adapting or rebuilding our business, in other words." So he's still banging the drum of the movie-going experience, even though that's maybe not the safest thing to do right now, but he doesn't want it to die going forward. He continued, quote, "Long-term, movie-going is a part of life, like restaurants and everything else. But right now, everybody has to adapt to a new reality." The movie made... how much? 300 something million?
It's like 347 right now.
347. And he's saying like, look, that's actually good. We should use this as a learning experience. Do you buy it? Do you think he's actually happy with the performance of Tenet, at least domestically?
I think like domestically has to be where he's the least happy. But the thing is, like 350 million is nothing to say, hey, that's nothing. I mean, it's a nice amount of money for a Nolan movie. It's a low amount of money. He's one of the few kind of like directors who can sell a movie just on his name alone. But then I looked and I was like, okay, how much did Dunkirk make? It made like 527, which I think was similar as far as like not based on an IP, didn't have a huge movie star at the center of it. So I feel like 350 in a pandemic is pretty good. It's just if you're Warner Brothers and you spent 200 million on this and you had way higher expectations when you first made this thing, that's where you get into the...
That's the thing. I don't have the figures in front of me, but surely Tenet cost more than Dunkirk. From a budget and promotion standpoint.
But I think Nolan gets a lot of money for all his movies, but I think you're right that it ultimately did cost more.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're in this place now where it's like there's not that much that can be done. Even if you opened all the movie theaters and they weren't shuttered anymore and we could all go see movies, a lot of people just wouldn't because they still wouldn't feel safe doing so. So I think we're kind of in the Spider-Man pointing at all the other Spider-Mans point in this meme where it's just like, yeah, the filmmakers are blaming the studios are blaming the law, everybody blaming exhibitors, like everybody's sort of looking for someone to blame. And it's just like we're running up against cold, hard reality that people were already not going to movie theaters as much as they used to. And now nobody's going because it doesn't feel safe. So, I mean, I'm sure he's disappointed in the box office generally and is just kind of looking for a way to move forward without losing that angle on future releases.
Yeah. But you talk about cold hard reality, and as Eric said, it made $300-something million, which is not nothing. And Warner Brothers, the studio involved in this, has a bunch of major finished unreleased movies. At this point, do you think do you agree with Nolan that they should still look to make what they can from theatrical release, or should they just fold up shop and go straight to VOD? Like, are you with him on that?
Man, that's a tricky one, right? I mean, especially it's so tricky for us because we live in LA where a theater's not been open. We could not go see Tenet at first, literally, because they weren't even letting it be at drive-ins, so they added it there. But then you see parts of the world like China is raking it in. Like, not only are movies back there, but people are like, they're making huge amount of money. So it's like, there is a market out there. And I see his side of it as far as like, well, why wouldn't you make, 350 million if you can, and then you can still put it on VOD and make money there. I mean, Tenet's a weird one because it didn't get as great response as most of Nolan's movies did. I haven't seen it, but it got way more mixed reaction, it seems. But at the same point, you still think like, well, there's still got to be a market for that movie on VOD. It's not like people won't want to see it now that it was in theaters and they couldn't or didn't want to go see it. So I feel like if you're a big enough movie that maybe there is something to his argument, putting aside the fact that we all have to make a decision for ourselves if we feel safe to go, which is going to be wildly different for people based on where you live, including what country you're in, clearly right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what can we do? What can the studios do at this point? And do they owe the theatrical chains anything at this point? I mean, I guess it's in everybody's interest for the studios to keep them in business so that they still have an outlet to release their films when this is all over. Frankly, like so many things, not to get too political, like this is a bigger problem than some executive at Warner Brothers is equipped to handle, considering it involves entire swaths of the economy that keeping these things alive maybe isn't possible without assistance from maybe a collective body where we give them money and then they funnel it on to these places. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like, and again, I try to avoid too much politics, but as a nation, we've kind of taken the approach to the pandemic that it's like everyone for themselves. Like we're not giving wholesale assistance to individuals or to industries or to specific companies. I mean, there was that sort of initial burst of here's a check and then that's it. So yeah, I mean, we're kind of saying that to exhibitors and movie theater companies that it's like, well, if you can afford to keep the lights on, great. But if not, we're not willing to organize any kind of consolidated national effort to save you. So I think that it's probably going to be, I mean, where I live in Silver Lake, every week another popular, beloved local restaurant or store is announcing that it's shutting down. And I think we're going to just gradually see that extending to just about every kind of industry that's been massively affected by this thing. Like, movie theaters are probably, some movie theater chains may make it. A lot of them probably will not.
Yeah, it just seems especially short-sighted because to me, and like Eric was saying, is like the desire to see movies didn't go away as evidenced by China. Like when people feel safe to do so and when there are new movies in theaters, we haven't all decided that we never want to go to a movie theater again. I think for a lot of us, quite the opposite. So it seems just like a huge waste of resources and time and effort to let everything fail and shutter and become, rat habitats. And then when this is over, dust them off and rebuild them and buy them up and reopen movie theaters instead of just kind of keeping them on the dole until this is all over.
Yeah, it's interesting because as someone who loves the theatrical experience and really, really wants it to still be there, and also thinks it will be, because like you said, it's like when this is all over, people will want to go to restaurants and concerts and churches and movie theaters. It's like, there's a lot of places people will want to go again that they can't right now or don't feel comfortable or safe doing. But how do the theaters even, make it? How do they stay afloat? And they all won't. But it's interesting. I think it was Forbes who wrote about Universal and what they're doing, because if you look at Universal, they're releasing Freaky next week in theaters. And then they have The Croods 2, and there's another movie I'm forgetting about at the holidays. But they also have that new deal with AMC where they can put things on VOD 3 weekends after, I should say, theatrical release. And as much as in the long term, that's a scary thing that could hurt theaters, right now it might be a great thing for at least AMC theaters, because it means they get a new movie from a big studio. It's not obviously Fast 9. Universal's still holding off on their biggest stuff, but there's some new product that's enticing that then Universal still can be after 3 weekends if they want, say, okay, it did what it did in the pandemic time. Now we can put it on VOD. Because right now Warner Brothers has no such system in place, and that just won't and can't happen. Mm-hmm. So Universal might have a good plan here to help theaters and help themselves.
That's
and I do think things like that will probably continue. I mean, we'll probably just see the same process we were going to witness over 5 to 10 years, and it'll just be collapsed over the next 2 to 4 instead, is probably what's going to happen. And yes, I think that Universal deal is probably the first of many that other studios will eventually reach with exhibitors to sort of smooth this transition. But I think we're going to see what we were already going to see, which is there will be fewer, probably movie theaters are not going to entirely go away. There will just be fewer of them because there will be fewer people going to see movies week to week regularly, but it won't die out. And more movies, not all movies, but more movies will debut directly on streaming in some form.
And the next big one on the calendar, slated for Christmas, I believe, is Wonder Woman 1984, a Warner Brothers movie, same as Tenet. I feel like Patty Jenkins has pushed publicly for this to be in theaters. She does not want this to go straight to VOD. But could you see some type of hybrid release, like that short theatrical window, like Universal's doing? Or do you just see this getting pushed to 2021 and there's no chance we see this on Christmas?
Right now, I just keep assuming it'll be pushed. But
I'm done saying no on this stuff. Like, I used to just be like, no, they're going to put Wonder Woman in theaters. Come on. And now we're getting right up to the edge where I'm not sure what's going to happen anymore. Like, Soul was a big moment for me where it's like, if they're going to just start dropping fresh Pixars on us, who knows what'll come next? Like, I think eventually we will cross that Rubicon of a big comic book movie will get released on VOD. Will it necessarily be Wonder Woman? I don't know. But Black Widow, Wonder Woman, Eternals, one of those, it's going to happen.
Yeah, it was interesting. There was an interview with like one of the heads at Warner. I know there's so many different executives. And he was hinting that there's something that they haven't announced that they'll be doing around Christmas with HBO Max. And some people were like, we'll jump to Wonder Woman, although he seemed to act like it wasn't. And then some people thought maybe it's just Tenet will be on HBO Max, around Christmas. But I do think they're going to stick to Wonder Woman for theatrical for now. Although I agree with Lon that something's going to give if this keeps going and if we don't get a vaccine anytime soon, that we will get a genuine big tentpole comic book movie, which seemed impossible a few months ago. They do that, go to streaming, but I don't know if it's going to be Wonder Woman, at least not yet. Could it do this deal? I think it would be, the question is, and the answer is it's very possible. Will Warner Brothers make a deal like Universal? Because it wouldn't just be for Wonder Woman. It would have to be like a whole thing like Universal did where, okay, we're agreeing now going forward, all our movies can do this quick turnaround and can go to VOD much shorter window than we used to ever. They might. Right now, deals are being made that, like you said, Lon, might have taken years to happen or people thought would never happen. Suddenly, everything is changing so quickly in front of us. Who knows? Any day now, Warner Brothers could say, okay, now we've made the Universal deal.
And you do have to look at the incentives for a lot of these executives, too. At the exact same time this is all happening, they're also getting tremendous pressure to make these streaming platforms work better and to get more number. Like, that's where all of the investor attention is like, why aren't your streaming numbers higher? Like, get those HBO Max subscription numbers up and Apple TV Plus and all these other new platforms. And so the temptation to just, we can't open this in theaters anyway, and we'd probably get a boost out of it for, like Paramount Plus or whatever. Like, that's going to be weighing on all of these people's heads for the next few years as well.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of a, like, let's move this over here where I'm getting more focus anyway.
It's I didn't think about that being a trend and where investors' heads were at, and because that's the growth opportunity is in all this is on the streaming side, even if it's not making money for many years and they're massively in debt.
Right. Well, the last few Disney Plus like earnings calls, or whatever, have been dominated by this topic. Like, why is Disney Plus so slow? Like, obviously, there's the pandemic delay on stuff like the Marvel shows, but like Disney Plus has been around for a year, and basically the only original series that's anything is Mandalorian, and they put Hamilton up there, but it's all archived, and so that's like the big opportunity for them. Is like, just start putting more of this stuff on Disney Plus, which you have to sell anyway.
Yeah, and HBO Max is even in a tougher thing because they didn't launch with a Mandalorian type show. They've got all these DC shows and big high profile stuff in the works, but they didn't have anything yet. And yes, they moved The Witches, but The Witches was never going to be like, I don't think they saw The Witches as ever going to be like a tentpole on the level of Wonder Woman. Yeah, so who knows? Like,
if only we got that Friends reunion special, then boy.
Well, that story extends across the board because that was Peacock's problem too. Like, Peacock, the whole plan was the Tokyo Olympics. We're going to have the Summer Games. We'll put a bunch of the events on Peacock. We'll promote the hell out of it on every NBC channel. And then it's like, oh, by the way, those are canceled. Not happening. It's like, Brave New World adaptation, anyone? You guys like British sitcoms? Because that's what we got.
They didn't even, and as someone genuinely excited for the new Saved by the Bell, they couldn't even get that done in time because of COVID to debut. So.
Yeah, no, it's been a disaster. So of course you understand the temptation to, if you're, Universal, you've got this struggling platform that everybody's looking at that you're desperate to boost. Like, well, maybe that's a good spot for, the Croods or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Well, we'll wait with bated breath to where we can see the Croods next month. See you there. See you there in the theater, front row.
Until then, the balcony is closed.
And the rest of the seats.
And everything is closed.
Thank you guys for watching. We know you could and probably should be watching anything else today, but you're here with us talking about Christopher Nolan and Tenet and box office.
Literally nothing else of importance.
Which is cool. Hey, this is a place where we can all just hang out and talk movies and then go back to our hell world. Hit like, subscribe, hit that bell, hang around next time we do this thing. And also subscribe to Lon and Hollywood Hal Rednick's podcast, The Binge Boys.
Yeah, look at that. It's a logo.
Oh man, that's great.
Yeah, see, they made my beard and hair very unkempt, but then they made my body very slender. So I'm like, okay, I'll accept it. Look at that svelte physique on cartoon Lon.
I want an animated series now with you guys.
I really want to see that series.
It's got like an Adult Swim. I feel like a 12-ounce mouse character.
Very Tom Goes to the Mayor. Yeah, I like it. Yeah. Definitely subscribe to that. They're talking all things streaming, and they got good insights and some funny stuff on there. So
come on. We've got the insights, please.
All right, on to the questions of you, the people. Here we go from Lucas W. First question up: what do you think the biggest thing is theaters could do to make people feel comfortable going? Fair question. Bubbles?
Yeah, individual pods, or I guess groups if you come with your cluster. I don't know.
There is I was reading about this. There are theaters that are doing for a relatively low price, like $100 or $200. You and your friends can just rent out a whole screening room.
Yep.
And they'll run one of the movies for you, but it's just you can sit wherever you want, and it's only people you're comfortable with. That, I feel like, at least is a stopgap. That's a good way to at least get people comfortable with the idea of going back to a theater, at least so they can control the environment a little bit better.
Yeah, I've read about that. I actually even know a couple people who done that and wrote some articles about doing that. And I think even for Tenet, someone wrote, him and his girlfriend, rented out the theater for $100 to watch that. And of course, you can do it with more people. If you felt like you had a small group of people, if you had 6 people, and if you live together, you can sit together. If you don't, you could be in all different corners.
You could distance yourselves out. I mean, I will say, that to me has where I went recently. I hadn't tried it. I saw Synchronic at a drive-in, the Vineland drive-in, and it's fine. I mean, it is nice to go see a movie projected again. There is something enjoyable and comforting about that. But I will say you do still lose the communal part of the experience. You're not in a crowd. You're in your car with whoever you brought with you, and that's it. Which is not really very different from on a couch at your house.
Yeah, that's a good point, Lon, because I think there are things that would, renting out a whole theater or, encasing me in lucite or whatever, that would make me feel safe. But at the same time, it's just not worth it, because like you're saying, the benefit of seeing a movie live, like a horror movie or a comedy, is the group experience and seeing it.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. The renting out a theater, I guess if you could pack enough people that you were comfortable with into that theater, you could sort of mitigate this a little bit. But that's part of the experience of being in a room that's full of people and you're all experiencing the same thing together. And I don't know how we do that in the age of COVID, short of just outdoor screenings. I really don't know. And even there, you don't want to be right up next to people. It's still got 6 feet.
Question from Daza Wadsworth. Lon, I think you're going to have some answers here. Any memories of the video rental store days?
So many. good and bad, all across the gamut. I worked in one for 3 years, a little more than 3 years. I think the one thing that we lost, and we've sort of made up for it in another way. Like there was no internet when I started going to video stores. Like you had this sort of relationship with the video store and the people that worked there that was like, they were kind of your gurus. Like they were like, hey, what should I rent? If I like this, or at this, like I learned a lot about movies from those days of going to rent movies at video stores and having the people that work there just tell me what to watch or recommend things. And I feel like we lost that now that everything's moved online. We've gained like YouTube and internet reviews and Twitter and Facebook and all of these other ways to get movie recommendations. So it's not gone. It's just like really different. And I am nostalgic for how it used to be when it was like someone that you knew who was knowledgeable, who was like a cool person that you trusted because you liked their advice, rather than just like this, pipe of movie information being shot at your eyeballs every day. And you just kind of have to figure out who to listen to.
Also, I don't know what it is psychologically, but I was thinking about this because clearly you could go on Netflix and you could scroll through what they have and you'll see a bunch of things you've never seen and be like, maybe I'll check that out. But for some reason, I always found it much easier to make a decision when I went to the video store. And, especially as like a horror guy, and I'd go through and all these horror movies I've never seen, some I'd never heard of. Maybe it's because you had to pick one. You had to pick one and go home. So you couldn't just lay on your couch and forever scroll through titles and not pick anything. I was like, okay, I need to go home in the next 20 minutes. So, all right, this one with this weird skull on the cover, I'm going to check that one out. There was something about the discovery there. And maybe again, I'm romanticizing the tactile nature of it all. But it did seem like I kind of investigated things a little more that way, just by grabbing it off a video shelf, because I was going to kind of just like play movie Russian roulette and take it home and see if I liked it or not.
Yeah. All my memories are great of video stores for the most part. But like, you'd go in on a weekend, parents would drop me off or come in with me, and my brother and I could get one video game and one movie rental and one thing of candy. And man, like those decisions were some of the happiest decisions of my life. That said, 2020 Video, now defunct, falsely claimed that I lost the instruction booklet to Mortal Kombat 2. I put it in there. You charged us extra. And then we had to be Blockbuster people after that. Bullshit. Yes, yeah. So, yeah. Those.
I will tell you, one of my favorite video store memories was a lady came in and she was like, there's a Kids in the Hall sketch that's almost note for note this interaction. And she's like, I'm looking for this Vietnam War movie. Can you help me remember the title? And I start throwing out titles. Apocalypse Now is like the third one that I say. And she's like, no, it's none of those. I'm pretty sure Martin Sheen's in. I'm like, I think you're talking about Apocalypse Now. If we can keep going. She's like, no, they're taking a boat down a river. Martin Sheen's definitely on the boat. I think Lawrence Fishburne might be in there. I'm like, I promise you. And then she's like, no, there's like a song and it's like, da 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 da. I'm like, it's a I had to go like take a break because I was going to have an aneurysm. And she ended up renting like Platoon. Like she didn't end up getting the right movie anyway.
Heart of Darkness. Yeah.
Same family.
That's what it was. That sums up the working at a video store experience.
I also had the early 2000s video store experience of DVDs were out and they were getting popular, but you still had the people who did not understand letterboxing because it was still people didn't have widescreen TVs yet for the most part, and having to explain, especially to a lot of older people, that why I don't want it cutting off the top and bottom of the screen, and being like, actually, you're getting the full picture. No, I hate those black bars.
Zoom in. Yeah.
Yeah. You would get those people, and then you would get the people who are like, what does anamorphic mean? And then you explain it to them, we're like, that's not what it means. Like, I don't want to, I never want to define anamorphic for another person. De-interlacing, awesome. Get out.
All right, next question. Well, this one, maybe put this in the back of your mind and you can answer it at the end, because I think you'll want to think about it. Adam Hulbert asks, what's a movie and TV show you would combine? I'd fuse Chernobyl and Godzilla into an HBO drama or horror movie.
Whoa.
So if you can come up with something by the end of the show, we'll move on, but have that work on that silently in your brain. Okay. Here's an easier one. Chid asks, who's the best actor of this generation?
Wait, when we say this generation, do we mean like the young kids?
Let's say, Zoomers? Somebody who's started making movies post 2000.
Oh my gosh.
So like Pattinson would be the previous.
Well,
No,
I think he makes the cut.
We're talking that era.
Yeah, I think we say Pattinson.
Yeah,
Couple of
Pattinson.
Fires, early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's included in there. Man.
I mean, like, because my answer was going to be Joaquin Phoenix, but now I need to see, like, was he working in the 90s?
Like his 50s,
Oh yeah, he was.
right?
He was in
would be-
Parenthood in '89.
He's
Getting that
been around
masturbation
for.
advice from Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, I feel like if we're talking
You're
like
right, yeah.
Gen Z versus millennials is like the key distinction here.
Yeah.
I mean, you got your Adam Driver.
Right. Yeah, I feel like Adam Driver's a solid. Pattinson is like I'm sort of tempted to go down that road just first blush.
Oscar Isaac didn't get started
Chalamet.
until recently, right? Like Oscar Isaac's.
He certainly.
he's in his 40s though, isn't he?
but
like,
he
is he this generation still?
Okay, I'm looking at his IMDb. He was in one movie in the 90s where he played the pool boy. Got to check that one out.
I first remember him from Zack Snyder's ingenious Sucker Punch. Really?
Yes, of course. You'd be my pick if we're going on like generation as in like generation of film, but like if you mean generation of age, like young actors, best young actor, like I don't know, what's his name? Paul Dano.
Paul Dano's great.
Paul Dano's very good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna think of so many actors when we're done with this.
Yeah, that's what I'm haunted by. The like, oh, I'm gonna come up with like a bunch of good ones. Also, are we just doing like we're calling both genders?
Yeah, I think they mean both. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like one for each, maybe.
Yeah, because I will say she hasn't done a lot of movies, but Kiernan Shipka from Mad Men was like amazing on Mad Men. I've been a fan of her for a while. She's in that Zoomer class.
And you know I'm a Saoirse Ronan apologist. So.
There's nothing to apologize for.
Yeah,
exactly. That's what I keep saying.
Why does Saoirse need an apologist?
Elizabeth G in the chat agrees with you, Spencer. That was
No.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so no, Saoirse Ronan is one of my favorites.
Yeah,
as well, actually.
Saoirse like inertia.
All right. Well, keep thinking about that. You can shout them out later.
We'll keep ruminating on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe this will be a movie TV answer, but John Brainbridge asked, with all of everything happening lately, what do you guys do to de-stress? Any de-stress tips? If it's too hard of a question, what movie do you watch to de-stress?
Like just like pills? Is that an answer? It's like pills.
Pills are good.
I will say this to anyone like me who lives alone and also has anxiety, just generally, not necessarily about current things. A dog. I really recommend getting a dog because you get an excuse to go out and take walks, and that's nice to sort of clear your head. And as a person who, like, I'm not the kind of person that wants to just be like, you know what I'm going to do that's going to help my headspace? Take a walk. But it's like you have to because otherwise there's going to be poop on your floor. And so it's good to have that motivation. And it's just nice for the company. And so that's my number one.
I mean, besides the general, like, watching movies and TV, which is true, I guess a little more specifically, I've been trying to watch more animated stuff. Like I think I was mentioning right before we started the show today, I've been watching Young Justice for the first time, which I've never seen. Before that, I did a Spectacular Spider-Man rewatch, and I've been watching some of the new Looney Tunes on HBO Max. So there's something to me about just like some good animation. Whether it be a cool action stories or humor.
Have you checked out Blood of Zeus on Netflix this week? It's the new one from the same studio that did Castlevania, which is like a guilty pleasure Netflix.
It looks pretty ridiculous.
Oh, it's super. It's just Castlevania, but instead of like gothic vampire horror, it's just like Greek myth stuff. But like it's not an actual Greek myth. It's just like ideas from Greek mythology, and then like lots of blood and guts and fighting and monsters and demons, and it's fun. But very like escapist, silly fun. So
and I will add it to the list. That's going on the list.
None of what I do to de-stress is appropriate for live internet television.
Ooh, wow. Ayahuasca.
All right, SG Rapness writes, are there any TV or movie genres you weren't that interested in pre-lockdown, but you've given it a chance recently and realized you liked it? Any or any like anything you were avoiding pre-lockdown, and then you're like, okay, fine.
I mean,
fine, I'll watch this.
I guess it's not like I guess I'm watching more animation, but it's not like I didn't like it before. So I'm piggybacking on my own answer just now, just to say it's like something that I've been like, well, let's investigate that a little more. Although also I should say I've been bad about this, but I've been trying to watch more classic movies, and actually HBO Max, which has such a deep, bench of old films and all the Criterion stuff, and the movie channel, the Turner classic movie stuff. So I've been trying to go there, and I watched, what was it called? The 39 Steps, the Hitchcock movie from like 1939. And, I watched that. I watched the original Blob from the 50s. So kind of all over the map, what kinds of movies, but I have been trying to do that. An American Paris. I've been kind of mixing that in, is going and being like, that's where I've been kind of scrolling on HBO Max, being like, let's look in the Criterion or the Turner Classics movie section and find something I've never seen that's from before 1970. And there's a lot of great stuff out there. So that's been something I've been kind of diving into a lot more.
Yeah, I it's not that I avoid them, but I was not great about watching. Like, I don't often keep up with TV comedies. So there's a lot of just like comedy series that you hear are great and that people love, but that I never personally got around to, that I've now had a little bit more time to go back and check out. So I finally watched Schitt's Creek and caught up with that. And Crazy Ex-Girlfriend I had never seen before, and I caught up with that. And Search Party, I finally got around to watching that. So like yeah, I loved it. So like a bunch of those kind of shows. And it's not like I was avoiding them before, because I figured I would probably like them. Yeah. But I just hadn't like ever made the commitment to like sit down and like, Dead to Me is another one on Netflix, where it's just like, okay, I'll finally go back and watch this thing I'm almost guaranteed to like. And then I did.
Yeah, I would say to half offensively and broadly stereotype an entire gender, girl movies. I've been in a movie club since lockdown with 5 friends of mine, 2 of which are women, and they are picking, like, we try to pick movies that none of us have ever seen before, and we've all seen a lot of movies, so the ones that like we haven't tend to be like Soap Dish and Death Becomes Her and stuff like that, like this zone of 90s female-focused comedies has been actually really fun, and I would recommend both of those movies very highly.
Soap Dish is great.
You want to see like Robert Downey Jr.'s audition for Tony Stark and like everything else that you love him for. So good. Freaking good.
And that's really like, that's the peak Kevin Kline era. Like, we still get good Kevin Kline today, but that was absolutely when he was just firing on all cylinders, could do no wrong comedically.
So I'd say, I guess like 80s to 90s sort of like high concept rom-coms has been what I've been watching.
I like it.
Certainly more of.
They're good. They're
since
good.
Lockdown. And they're really good.
Yeah.
I'm going to suddenly throw in another actress, which is Saoirse Ronan co-star, Florence Pugh. Pugh, how do you say it? Pug? I never know how to say it, but she's great.
Pugh.
She's great in everything.
In the chat as well.
Also, while we're adding actresses to the top of the pile, Anya Taylor-Joy. Let's just slip her on top of there as well.
The Queen's Gambit. I just watched that. That's excellent. I never thought I'd be so riveted by a chess drama, but it's great, and she's great in it. And she's been great in everything.
All right. Well, final question. Unless you can think of a TV movie turducken that you think would be cool, is Dionne Carson writes, "What's the best movie you've watched during lockdown?"
Ooh. Man, I've watched a lot.
Doesn't need to be new. Just anything you've watched. Give us your best movie
overall, number one.
Yeah.
Just overall best film.
Well, part of me wants to
when lockdown started.
Part of me just wants to say Trick or Treat, because I watched it on Halloween, like I do every year on Halloween, because Trick or Treat is a perfect movie. But now I'm literally bringing up my Letterboxd list, because during lockdown I've been much better at actually keeping a list of.
Mine's a horror one. I watched the original Suspiria, and I don't know, Eric, maybe that's too artsy for the real horror. No. I thought that was so cool. That's something that I'd never come across until lockdown, and I'm not a huge horror fan, and I love this movie.
But what I love so much about the two Suspirias is that they're so different. Like, Guadagnino,
I watched the new one too.
Really delved into like the mythology and then the world building, and really digging into like these witches and this coven and all that. And the Argento, the original version, is so much just about the aesthetics and the experience and like the sensory the music and the murders and all that. And so it's such a radically different experience of the same story.
Yeah, I love the new one. I was super on board. I thought like maybe the third act got a little like, I don't know. It seemed like a student film at that point. It just got a little ridiculous. Kind of lost me at the end there, but really fun until that point for me. So both Suspirias, I would recommend. I've seen them both over lockdown.
I'd say one kind of rediscovery for me during lockdown is Cronenberg's The Fly, just because I'd seen it, but it had been forever. And I actually went to see that at the drive-in. And I was like, man, this is a great movie. And it's still kind of amazing that it was released by a major studio, because it's so like the effects are amazing, but it's like just so gory, but also sad. And it's just like Cronenberg, like mixing together all these sort of extremes in a way that only he can. And yeah, really, and then, of course, Goldblum is great in it, and so is Gina Davis. And these are all things I knew once upon a time, but I hadn't seen it so long. And sort of watching it again, it was kind of amazing to see. And it was one of my favorite, hey, Disney owns this now movies with the weirdest of 20th Century Fox. Disney's The Fly. Check it out.
I'll pick a few. Like the one that I watched pretty recently that I had seen before, but it had been a really long time, is The Innocents. And I watched it again because it's based on the same Henry James novella that The Haunting of Bly Manor on Netflix was based on recently. It's another Turn of the Screw adaptation. It's from 1961, I want to say, black and white. Really great, on Criterion now, worth checking out. I also love the Charlie Kaufman one, I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which is on Netflix. That's definitely been one of my favorite things to come out during lockdown that I watched a few times trying to piece it all together. And then the last one, Palm Springs, which is on Hulu.
Yeah. I was about to mention that. Yeah.
Andy Samberg. One of the great time loop comedies, probably the best time loop movie since Groundhog Day. Absolutely worth your valuable time.
Yeah, I was just about to mention Palm Springs. That was I watched that like 3 times this summer.
Yeah, I
loved it. I'm a sucker for a good time loop, and I think that they did a great job with that. And the two of them are so great together.
And Synchronic, the one I just saw at the drive-in, it's the new Benson and Moorhead. If you liked Spring, if you liked The Endless, it's the same guys. Another kind of wonky time sci-fi story, more serious, sort of somber than Palm Springs, but very powerful. Amazing performance from Anthony Mackie. He destroys it in that movie. Maybe his best performance ever.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, awesome. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I hope we've given you a lot of stuff to check out today. Maybe you can watch some of those to de-stress. And we'll leave you with our TV movie hybrids, if you got any. All I can think about is The Sopranos if you swap Tony with Bane. Just imagining Bane in therapy, Bane and Christopher,
where's the gabagool?
I'm cheating here because these both started as movies, but then one of them turned into a Netflix TV series. So I'm going to say Wet Hot American Summer, because I lose one of my earbuds. Wet Hot American Summer and
so far,
and Friday the 13th.
Gotta do a
get the 80s camp all together.
Yes. Right. And it's already it already takes some inspiration from those movies, and that like Sleepaway Camp I know is like Ken Marino.
A visual, right? Yeah.
That's great. I was going to say you could do a Back to the Future sequel, but with quantum leap rules. So the DeLorean will now take Marty back to any point during his lifetime, but he's jumping into other people's bodies.
That's dangerously close to a Back to the Future remake. I'm not allowing it.
And Lon, Universal owns both IP, so
don't give many ideas. No, pull the plug.
Doc, this is heavy. What does Ziggy say?
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Lon, Eric, thank you for participating. Everybody, go back to your lives. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.